It all began with humiliation. The kind of humiliation that cuts deeper than any wound, because it wasn't just about bruises on the body. It was about crushing the spirit. Inside a quiet family-owned restaurant in San Diego, two friends sat across from each other at a booth, laughing over spicy tacos. To anyone watching, they were just ordinary young people sharing dinner. But to the man who walked through the door, a man wearing a badge and an ego too big for the room, they were nothing more than easy targets. His boots clapped against the tile. His eyes burned with arrogance. He pointed at them like criminals and barked out orders no innocent person should ever hear. In a matter of minutes, the laughter at that table turned into disbelief. Then into shame. Handcuffs snapped around their wrists. Diners whispered. Some turned away. Others just stared. Two Navy SEALs. Heroes who had risked their lives overseas, now treated like common thugs in front of strangers, dragged out of the restaurant by a corrupt cop who thought his badge made him untouchable. But what no one in that restaurant knew was that this wasn't just about an arrest. This was about power, abuse, and a man who thought he could humiliate anyone he wanted. If you believe no one wearing a uniform should ever misuse it to crush the innocent, hit subscribe and like this video now, because this story will shake your heart. Because what happened next, no one could have imagined. Before the humiliation, before the cold steel of handcuffs, Jason Cole and Ava Carter were just two friends trying to enjoy a quiet Saturday night in San Diego. Jason, in his early 30s, was the kind of man people trusted without even knowing why. Years of military service had carved discipline into his bones, but his smile always carried warmth. He had seen too much overseas to take the simple things for granted. For him, sharing a meal with someone he trusted was a luxury more valuable than gold. Ava, younger but no less battle-tested, carried a fire in her eyes that no one could extinguish. She loved spicy food, almost as much as she loved proving Jason wrong. Her laugh was quick, infectious, the kind of laugh that told the world she refused to let hardship steal her joy. They weren't dressed in uniforms tonight. No medals pinned to their chests. No weapons strapped to their sides. Just jeans, casual shirts, and the invisible bond of soldiers who had faced storms together. To anyone looking, they were just two ordinary people at Delgado's Grill, a family-owned Mexican restaurant where the owners knew their names and always gave them extra salsa on the side. Jason leaned back in the booth, wiping salsa from his chin. "You always do this, Ava. Order the spiciest thing just to watch me suffer." Ava chuckled, shaking her head. "Don't blame me because you can handle gunfire but not habaneros. That's your weakness, not mine." They laughed together, and for a moment, the world outside didn't exist. The war zones, the deployments, the nights of silence filled with explosions, all of that felt far away. Here, they were just Jason and Ava, friends, survivors, and warriors who wanted nothing more than to feel normal. But San Diego had a way of reminding them that peace could be fragile. Because while they shared stories and laughter, someone else was watching. Officer Grant Wallace. A cop in his 40s with a uniform that looked sharp but a conscience that had long since rotted. He was the kind of man who carried himself like he owned the streets. The kind who measured his worth not by justice, but by how many people he could intimidate. To him, the badge wasn't a responsibility, it was a weapon. Earlier that evening, Wallace had sat alone in his patrol car, parked by the harbor, nursing his bitterness. He had once dreamed of being a hero, but now he felt small, invisible. And nothing bruised his ego more than seeing people laugh, live, and thrive while he felt stuck in his own resentment. So when his eyes caught Jason and Ava through the restaurant window, something twisted inside him. They looked confident, strong, like they belonged somewhere better than him. And Wallace hated that. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, watching them. His mind wasn't on crime prevention. It was on control, on reminding the world, and himself, that his badge meant he was the one in charge. Jason noticed the patrol car first. The way its lights flickered for a moment, then cut off. His instincts sharpened, but he said nothing. Years of service had taught him when to speak and when to stay quiet. Ava followed his gaze, her laughter fading just slightly. "Something wrong?" she asked. Jason shrugged, though his eyes stayed locked on the car outside. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. And that was the truth. Neither of them could have imagined that within minutes, their peaceful dinner would turn into a public spectacle. That the cop in the car would soon walk through those doors, not with honor, but with arrogance. Not to serve, but to humiliate. But this was only the beginning. The sound of the restaurant door opening was unremarkable at first. A faint chime, the creak of hinges. But when Officer Grant Wallace stepped inside, the air shifted. Conversations dipped. Eyes flicked toward him, then quickly away. Everyone in that room had seen his type before. A man whose badge was polished brighter than his conscience. Wallace scanned the room like a hunter looking for prey. His eyes locked on Jason and Ava. For a moment, he almost seemed to smirk, as though he'd already decided their guilt before even speaking a word. Jason noticed immediately. Years of service had sharpened his instincts. He sat straighter, his calm demeanor masking the subtle readiness in his posture. Ava, too, felt the tension. The easy laughter they had shared moments earlier was gone, replaced by an uneasy silence. Wallace approached their table, his boots striking the tile in heavy steps. He stopped, towering over them, hands resting on his belt in a way meant to intimidate. "Stand up," he barked. Jason raised his eyebrows. "Excuse me? You heard me. Both of you. Stand up. You're disturbing the peace." The restaurant fell quiet. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the cooks in the back seemed to stop clattering pans. Ava frowned. "Disturbing the peace? We're just eating dinner." Wallace's lip curled. "Don't talk back. People like you think the rules don't apply. Well, tonight they do. And I'm the one enforcing them." Jason's voice was calm, steady, but carried weight. "Officer, if there's a misunderstanding, we're happy to clear it up. But we haven't done anything wrong." And there it was. The first humiliation. Wallace wasn't after truth. He was after submission. He leaned closer, lowering his voice but not his arrogance. "Don't test me, boy. My badge outranks your attitude. Now get up before I drag you out." Jason locked eyes with him, but chose restraint. Ava felt her chest tighten, fury simmering beneath her calm expression. They both stood slowly, not out of guilt, but because they knew escalation here would only fuel Wallace's power trip. The diners whispered now, their eyes filled with confusion, some with fear. Jason and Ava, respected warriors overseas, were being treated like criminals at home. And what came next was even worse. Wallace stepped back, gesturing dramatically toward the door as though he were escorting dangerous felons. "Out! Both of you. You've disrupted enough." Jason clenched his jaw but walked forward, Ava at his side. As they passed the tables, the stares burned. Some patrons looked sympathetic, others judgmental. No one spoke up. Outside, the night air hit their faces, cool and sharp. Wallace followed, his voice louder now so the crowd inside could hear. "You think you're tough? Sitting in there laughing like you own the place? People like you make this city unsafe." Ava turned, unable to stay silent. "People like us? We've spent years protecting this country while you sit here abusing your badge." The words hit him like a slap. For a moment, Wallace's mask slipped, revealing the insecurity beneath. But instead of backing down, he doubled down. "You don't get to talk to me that way," he snapped. "Hands against the wall now." Jason stepped between them. "That's enough. We've done nothing wrong." Wallace's eyes darted around. A few people had followed to the door, watching. The more eyes on him, the more desperate he became to assert dominance. He couldn't back down now. Not in front of witnesses. So he pulled out his handcuffs. The metallic click echoed in the night. And with that, the second humiliation turned into the third. Wallace grabbed Jason's arm, twisting it behind his back. Jason didn't resist. Not because he couldn't, but because he knew resistance would only escalate things further. Ava moved forward instinctively, but Wallace shoved her back with his free hand, then grabbed her wrist roughly. "Both of you are under arrest," he declared, his voice booming, "for disorderly conduct and resisting authority." The absurdity of the charges hung in the air, but his tone left no room for argument. The cuffs snapped around Jason's wrists, cold and tight. Ava's followed. The onlookers gasped, some whispering that it didn't feel right, others too afraid to interfere. Wallace paraded them toward his patrol car, every step meant to humiliate. The sight of two innocent people, two heroes, being treated like criminals was almost unbearable to watch. Yet no one stepped forward. Not yet. Jason and Ava locked eyes, silent communication passing between them. They had faced worse than this. But never had injustice felt so personal. Wallace shoved them into the back of the car, slamming the doors with finality. Then he turned, his smirk returning as he addressed the small crowd. "Let this be a lesson. No one disrespects my authority. Not in my city." He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away, leaving behind a trail of whispers, doubt, and outrage. But what Wallace didn't know was that the lesson he thought he was teaching would soon become his own downfall. Because when morning came and the case reached the courtroom, the highest-ranking officer in the room wouldn't be him. And the moment those doors opened, his world would begin to collapse. And what came next would change everything. Morning came heavy with silence. Jason Cole and Ava Carter stood side by side in the county courthouse, their wrists free now, but their dignity still in chains. The courtroom buzzed with low chatter. Lawyers shuffled papers. A bailiff barked for order. At the front, Officer Grant Wallace sat smugly, his uniform pressed, his badge gleaming. To him, this was victory. He had dragged two strong, disciplined people into the mud and now was about to bury them under false charges. Jason looked calm. Too calm. His eyes steady, his jaw set. Ava's chest rose and fell in measured breaths, her fire still there, but hidden under layers of discipline. They had faced ambushes, bullets, and battlefields. But this cut differently. This was betrayal at home. The judge entered, robes flowing, gavel in hand. Court is in session. Wallace rose confidently, speaking before he was asked. Your Honor, the defendants before you, Jason Cole and Ava Carter, were arrested last night for disorderly conduct, resisting authority, and creating a public disturbance. He said the words with satisfaction, as if they were truth carved in stone. He glanced at Jason and Ava, smirking. The judge adjusted his glasses. Do you have evidence, Officer Wallace? Eyewitness accounts, Wallace replied quickly. They mocked authority. They resisted arrest. I was forced to detain them. The whispers in the gallery grew louder. Some shook their heads. Others leaned in. Jason finally spoke, his voice calm, unwavering. Your Honor, we complied. We never resisted. We never broke the peace. This man arrested us because he could, not because we did anything wrong. The judge leaned back. Strong accusation. And then, the courtroom doors swung open. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. Every head turned. And there he was. Tall, broad-shouldered, his uniform immaculate, rows of medals gleaming like steel in the sun. His very presence shifted the air. The judge stood a little straighter. The bailiff hesitated mid-step. Even the spectators went silent. But it was Wallace's face that told the real story. The smirk vanished. His eyes widened. A bead of sweat slid down his temple. The Admiral walked slowly, each step deliberate, echoing like thunder in the chamber. He stopped at the defense table, his hand resting firmly on Jason's shoulder, then Ava's. These two, he said, his voice steady, carrying authority that needed no amplification, are not criminals. They are not troublemakers. They are United States Navy SEALs. Decorated, disciplined, and heroes. Gasps filled the room. The gallery erupted in murmurs. The judge raised his gavel for silence, but even he looked shaken. The Admiral turned his gaze on Wallace. His eyes were ice. His words cut sharper than a blade. And you dared to strip them of dignity in front of strangers. You dared to parade them in handcuffs, when their hands have served this nation in ways you cannot begin to imagine. Wallace stammered, his voice cracking. I didn't know who they were. The Admiral's voice thundered. It doesn't matter who they are. Badge or not, you are sworn to protect, not humiliate. Authority without justice is nothing but tyranny. The judge's gavel slammed. Officer Wallace, unless you have irrefutable evidence of their guilt, this case is dismissed. Wallace's lips trembled. Your Honor, Case. Dismissed. The gavel struck again. The courtroom erupted. Some cheered. Others clapped softly. Jason and Ava stood taller, not out of pride, but out of relief. Out of vindication. Wallace slumped in his chair, his confidence shattered. The badge on his chest no longer looked like power. It looked like shame. And in that moment, as the Admiral stood towering in the courtroom, Wallace realized the truth. The highest-ranking man in that room wasn't him. And never would be. The gavel's echo faded, but the weight of what had happened lingered in the air. Jason and Ava stood still, their hands clasped in front of them, as if grounding themselves in the moment. For hours they had endured whispers, humiliation, and the sting of false accusations. But now, the truth stood taller than every lie. Officer Wallace slumped deeper into his chair. The man who had strutted like a lion now looked like a cornered rat. His eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, a defender, anyone who could salvage his pride. But the faces staring back were not on his side anymore. Even his fellow officers shifted uncomfortably, some refusing to meet his gaze. Admiral Kane placed a firm hand on Jason's shoulder. You did well to keep your composure, he said quietly, his words filled with the kind of respect that carried more weight than applause. Discipline isn't proven in victory, it's proven in restraint. Jason nodded, his throat tight. Ava blinked back tears, not from weakness, but from the sheer flood of relief. For once, justice had spoken louder than arrogance. The judge dismissed the case officially and added words that would haunt Wallace for years. Abuse of power is a greater crime than resisting it. This court stands with those who serve honorably, not those who hide behind their authority. It was over. As Jason and Ava walked out of the courtroom, people parted for them, not out of fear, but out of respect. Some clapped them on the back. Others whispered thank yous, recognizing that they had just witnessed something bigger than a single case. Outside, the California sun shone brighter. The chains of humiliation were gone, replaced by a strange peace. But for Wallace, the story didn't end at dismissal. Word spread quickly. Within the department, within the city, within the ranks of those who valued honor. Investigations followed. Complaints surfaced from others he had wronged. The badge that once gleamed with pride soon became a weight he could no longer carry. His downfall wasn't loud or violent. It was quieter, more devastating. Respect drained from his name, trust dissolved from his position, and authority slipped through his fingers like sand. And that's the cruel beauty of karma. When it strikes, it doesn't always scream. It simply leaves you with nothing. For Jason and Ava, the experience became a lesson, one they would carry into every mission, every training session, every moment of life beyond the battlefield. They had been reminded that the greatest battles are not always fought with weapons. Sometimes they are fought in silence, against arrogance, against injustice, against the unseen wounds of betrayal. And for the people watching, inside the courtroom, and for you listening now, this story holds a mirror. How many times have we seen the powerful crush the powerless? How many times has arrogance paraded as authority? And how many times have we stayed silent, thinking justice would never arrive? But justice comes. Maybe not always in a courtroom. Maybe not always in public. But it comes. Because power without compassion destroys itself. And truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the surface. So remember this, never mistake silence for weakness. Never mistake humility for defeat. And never, ever mistake a badge, a title, or a uniform as proof of character. Jason and Ava walked away free that day. But more than freedom, they walked away with dignity restored. And Wallace? He walked into the shadows of his own choices, left to face the weight of a truth he could no longer escape. Thought Balloon, if you believe in justice, must always be challenged. Share this story. And if you want more powerful stories where karma speaks louder than cruelty, subscribe and stay with us. Because these stories matter. And one day, you might need their reminder too.